Hello, Dr. Pran. Great to hear you, man. How are you doing in Australia?
Hi, Enrique. I can't. There's no
You're
audio coming
not
through.
no audio. Just a minute. Oh, that's strange. It's all working here. Okay. And now? Are you listening now? Can you hear me? Not yet?
Ah, perfect. I've got you there, Enrique. How are you?
Okay. Okay. I'm fine. And you? It's a beautiful day
I'm
in
doing well.
Australia.
It's beautiful but cold. It is. It's winter, and that's why I've got this beanie on to protect my bald head.
Okay. We are both bald.
Yeah, beautiful. I like it. That's how real men should look, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, my friend, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for accept the invitation. And I've been close to your work in your posts on Instagram, and I like very much your work there. And I'd like you to introduce yourself to the people here. Can you say a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm. My full name is Dr. Pran Yoganathan. I'd like to be known as Pran, Pran. So I'm a gastroenterologist, which is a doctor that is focused on the study of the gastrointestinal tract or the human gut. I've been doing this for over a decade now as a gastroenterologist, and I've been a doctor for over 2 decades. So I feel like I'm in the peak of my career in terms of what I've learned and the experience that I've had. I continue to grow, but as time has gone on, I've realized that there's so much more to a human being than the job that we become defined by. You know, we describe our lives by our occupations or our jobs. So really, for me, I've gone back to things that interested me in childhood, such as poetry and philosophy and the study of some more nuanced and esoteric things. And I think when you can do that, you start combining aspects of those things and you can stitch it all together nicely to provide a more poetic or nuanced perspective on your own field. So whilst I'm a gastroenterologist, I don't like to be defined as one. I suppose I'd like for my work to cross many broad disciplines, and that's what I've attempted to communicate on my social media platform, because I think that's a good platform to express yourself.
Yeah.
And certainly some of my content has been thought of as somewhat bizarre, I suppose, because here's a gastroenterologist posting on consciousness and physics and quantum physics and
Yeah.
nutrition and farming and all these sort of things. But the reality is that's what interests me, and that's what I'll continue to do. So yeah, that's a bit of a brief introduction for you.
Yeah, that's interesting because your profile make interested in me because of your posting philosophy and quantum physics and physics, and I'm very interested in that subjects too, and that's very interesting. Do you think that it has an intervening with gastroenterology? Can you see some correlations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the world, the entire cosmos, this entire universe is fundamentally sacred geometry weaving in and out of the linear arrow of time, and that's how we get this four-dimensional reality that we exist in. And our gut is part of that sacred geometry. I mean, the human body follows many aspects of the Fibonacci sequence. It's
Yeah.
a beautiful, beautiful construct, and that's been my message, that the human body, which is formed within space-time, has to have a relationship to things that are fundamental in space-time, such as, especially on this planet, such as the things like our earth and our soil and our sunlight and our water. And that's how you essentially come to the holy grail of health, is when you've got a relationship to those things. And that's been my point. You can't separate quantum physics or consciousness or whatever it is from gastroenterology. They're all interwoven. They're all part of the same thing. And to be honest, you can't even separate poetry from the gut, because when you assess the human gut, there's poetry embedded within it. It's such a beautifully evolved organ system that one can't help but to see the romance within an organ structure such as that.
That's great to see a physician, a doctor with this kind of thinking, because nowadays we have some kind of separation. It's like the world is split in multiple parts, and philosophy is totally isolated from human body, and human body is totally isolated from physics. And I think, like you do, I think we are all connected. All these dimensions are connected in one big dimension.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. I mean, we unfortunately are chained to the four-dimensional reality that we exist in, but concurrently, right in front of our eyes, there are multiple interwoven higher dimensions that we are cosmologically blinded to. We can't see these things. We can't necessarily appreciate them because our nervous system is simply not sophisticated enough. And that this is what the ancients, I suppose, termed spirituality or metaphysics. And I feel medicine and science has abandoned metaphysics.
Yeah.
And so they basically missing a huge part of reality. They are not seeing it. And that is what scientism has become, this pursuit of science and rationalization of science, that everything has to be proved via a paper for it to be taken seriously, has taken away something huge out of science, which is the mystery within it and the romance within it. And it's interesting. It actually then has filtered on to modes of governance. I think the way that the world is now run on something I call technocratic governance, where science is then weaponized against the people to essentially form rules, and that's how people are governed. And science is essentially the tool that has been turned against the people, and the people don't realize this. They're blinded
Yeah.
to it because they're so busy consuming junk food, junk information, junk relationships, junk everything, right? And it's partly to ease the pain of this amputation that we're in. So from my perspective, I think we have to bring the romance back to science. We have to change the way things are done. The world at the moment doesn't need more scientists; it needs more poets. And
Yeah.
if you can get a human being or more human beings that are combining these disciplines, then you've got beauty within that, and that's what I aim to do. That's my goal. No matter how much ridicule it brings me from the industry and from my colleagues, I'm prepared to take that head on. I do believe that there has to be an element of sacrifice, and sometimes you've got to sacrifice your own reputation, I suppose, amongst colleagues that have become so obstinate about this whole concept of science. Science is it's essentially it's lost something. It definitely has. And when you
Yeah.
look at some of the great scientists that have ever existed, the Newtons and the Einsteins and even people like Da Vinci, who was a great scientist, and not only was he
Yeah.
an artist, he was a polymath. He was a Renaissance man whose interests crossed many different disciplines. This is what we need to bring back. We need to bring back the polymaths, the guys that can that can cross many disciplines, weave in and out and dance on these disciplines to really provide the people some beautiful information about what we are and what our trajectory is for the future.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right. But as I said in the public, we're going to talk a little bit about fiber. Okay, you can put some poets in fiber, no problem. But
Yeah,
we're gonna have a little talk about fiber, and I think fiber is a great theme. And I'm a nutritionist here in Brazil, so we are our professions make some kind of marriage because you treat the people that have problems in the gut. I provide them with food, so we have something in common, something like that. But how we now live in a world that if you don't eat fiber, you're gonna die and you're gonna not make some poop, and that's a great problem if you don't eat fiber. Is there fiber? Fiber are really essential. Where does this notion come from?
sure. The notion is not really. There's no real great science behind it. But if you want me to take it from a scientific lens, here's what I'll do. We need to look at it from a historical lens to be able to interpret it through the scientific lens. So we're a primate. We're something that is a very, very advanced level of primate, and primates obviously. You've got the orangutans, chimps, etc. We're very special amongst the primates because of our brain power and capacity, but we must not forget the journey that it took for us to get to where we are. We shared a common ancestor with a chimp about 6 to 8 million years ago, right? And somehow those parts separated and diverged. So we went from being a creature very dependent on fiber to generate a fuel called ketones within our gut, to being a creature less dependent on fiber because we were fundamentally accessing ketones from fat, from the breakdown of fat. And that's partly what led to almost single-handedly what led to our brain expansion and growth. And it's something called the expensive tissue hypothesis, which is that the gut had to shrink and become much simpler to allow the brain to become more complex. So in reality, a chimpanzee or a gorilla has a more complex gut than us. Our
Yeah.
gut became far more simple to allow for our brain to become much more complex. Okay, that was the trade-off. And as a result, we became less dependent on rough fibrous foods, which, by the way, fiber is not a nutrient. We cannot break down fiber using any digestive mechanisms. No animal can. Not even a cow breaks down the fibers that it eats within the grass. But what it is there's a symbiosis between bugs in our gastrointestinal tract, microbes or bacteria and fungi. These are what break down the fibers, okay, these indigestible plant fibers, and they break them down into ketones, and ketones fundamentally become a fuel. Fuel for the brain, a fuel for the muscle, a fuel for many organ systems, including the gastrointestinal tract. Now, with us human beings, it is wrong to say that we should be completely dependent on fiber, but it is also wrong to say that we should be independent from fiber because we still have those vestigial remains of the ability to break down fiber. So, if you were to look at it from a scientific perspective, I would say maybe between 4 to 8% of our energy requirements for a day can come from fermenting fiber and liberating ketones. But a lot of that will depend on if your gut microbiome is healthy, which in the modern world, in this modern gentrified mess that we've built ourselves, where Roundup and Monsanto's or Bayer's glyphosate rains down from the heavens, it's not necessarily conducive to good microbiome health. So a lot of people, due to problematic gut microbiomes within the modern era, suffer with insoluble and soluble fiber. But that doesn't mean that we should just avoid the fiber completely. I believe we should optimize our gut to get us back to what is ancestrally consistent for us. And I believe we're a very flexible species. People make this argument: are we a carnivore or a herbivore or an omnivore? Well, I say that's too simplistic. Really, I mean, if you want to look at it from a scientific perspective, we're an omnivore, which is where we are now. But we're also farmers and we're also fermenters. We also cook food. So so where do we stand? We're spectacular in this animal kingdom. There is nothing like us. It does us disservice to classify us as carnivores, omnivores, or herbivores. We're none of those things. We utterly dominate this system that we're existing in. We are none of those things. We 6 million years ago we were a scavenger. 2 million years ago as Homo erectus we were an apex carnivore, and 10,000 years ago we became a farmer. So really, if you want to tell the true history of humanity, we must encompass all those things to say, well, we transcend dietary paradigms. Really, we're spectacular.
The when you talk like this, you say that so the great problem that we have today is the would be the ultra processed foods.
Yes. Now, ultra processed foods by themselves are low satiety, right? They don't necessarily
Yeah.
provide us with satisfaction. But the bigger problem with ultra processed foods is the modality in which they are grown, right? So,
Mm.
to create ultra processed food on a large scale like this current world has, you need to have monocrop systems of farming. You need to have industrial agriculture with all the industrial agrochemicals that go with it. The atrazines and the glyphosates and the nitrogen-based fertilizer. You fundamentally destroy the microbiome within the soil. Now, the soil is the greatest bank of the microbiome that our gut carries. So if we are destroying the microbiome within the soil through all these agrochemicals, then we're fundamentally destroying the bank from which we
Yeah.
withdraw the microbiomes. And so this is the issue that we've got. Ultra processed foods by themselves are probably, I mean, I don't think of them as being harmful. Yeah, they're low satiety and just excess energy in a world where we're more sedentary. But the deeper problem with ultra processed food, I suspect, is that they are leading to gut dysbiosis through the chronic ingestion of this antibiotic called glyphosate in particular, which is the most commonly used agrochemical in the world at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. So you think that fiber are not essential nutrients, but if you eat some fibers, it will be a good thing. And what about the treatment for constipation? When do you think fiber is the best alternative, or do you have some other ideas?
Yeah, I mean, constipation occurs in the large bowel, right? The large
Yeah,
intestine. And the large intestine, largely speaking, is a muscle. It's a muscle that is dependent on a fuel called butyrate for its work. And there's other there are other ketones, but butyrate and beta hydroxybutyrate are the big ketones that supply the colonocytes. Now, my perspective is this, that we can get these ketones through ingestion of fiber and fermenting it. Absolutely, and I think fiber is a good thing. Soluble fiber in particular is very useful, especially if you've got a good gut microbiome. But the issue that I see is that people don't, right? And so as a result, how do you get the gut to move? Well, you can eat a diet that liberates ketones. You can fast. That'll liberate ketones. Exercising will obviously liberate
yeah,
ketones. So there's many ways to do it. I don't think cutting out fiber is the right thing because the colon needs it. I mean, the colon, that's what the microbiome within the colon wants. And if you want to talk about the gut microbiome, that's where the microbiome population is the greatest. It's within the hind gut. So it makes no sense to completely starve them of the substrate that they're after, because trust me, it's not beneficial to be dumping in huge amounts of protein into the large bowel, especially through things like protein shakes and so forth, because eventually over time you'll start selecting for a lot of putrefactive gram-negative bacterial species that putrefy protein, and so you'll get an overgrowth of that, and that'll lead to dysbiosis. That's not a great thing, you know. So I think we have to be super nuanced when we talk about nutrition, because if we're going to cut out fiber altogether, you're almost circumventing the large bowel. You're almost forgetting it as an organ system, which you can't, because you carry it, you hold it within
mhm,
you. And this microbiome is by there is no doubt in my mind this microbiome is extremely important for our long-term health and our mental and physical well-being. I think is highly dependent on the microbiome. So why not give them what they need? But before you give them what you need, you have to eliminate the things that are potentially harming them.
Okay, okay, I got it. And what about diverticulitis? Do you think
Yep.
that fiber can be in the treatment of diverticulitis, or uh, 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 it's a disease that can be treated another way?
Okay, so again, I'll step back from the fiber argument and I'll say what is diverticulosis. Diverticulosis to me is fundamentally premature aging of the colon. It's where the collagen
Mm,
fibers are being weakened. I suspect it's driven by dysbiosis, right? I suspect dysbiosis is what drives it. And I've almost come to think of it as energy starvation for the colon. Remember, we said the colon prefers ketones, butyrate and beta hydroxybutyrate as its fuel, okay? That's what
okay.
it prefers to run on. And so, if we've got a population that rarely ever get into ketosis or are not liberating the ketones through proper fermentation within their hind gut, then you're essentially putting the colonocytes in a state of starvation. And I suspect over time that degrades the colon. It degrades not only the structure of the colon, it degrades the very essence of it. So that's what I suspect diverticulosis is. Again, my industry pushes fiber as a solution for diverticular disease. I think they actually miss the point on what diverticular disease is. We have to deal with the root cause, which is the energy starvation of the colon and the dysbiosis. So we need to correct dysbiosis before we can correct diverticulosis or attack diverticulosis. But the problem is, once those changes in the colon have taken place with diverticulosis, you can't necessarily go back and reverse those changes. That's an irreversible change.
Yeah, yeah. So you said that the ketones are the main food for the colon, and
Yeah,
we can have these ketones through the fermentation of fiber, but we can have
yeah,
these ketones with the use of fat in our metabolism. So
yeah.
is this the reason that the people who are doing a carnivore diet can thrive even if they are not eating some fiber?
Yes, look, yes, potentially. If they're crossing over into ketosis and liberating beta hydroxybutyrate from their fat stores, that would, through the systemic circulation, supply the colon. There's many ways to skin the cat, and this is probably how a lot of cultures, say like in northern Mongolia, or in the Arctic or something like that, where they're highly dependent on animal sourced foods. They don't
Mhm.
necessarily get access to plant based foods. Their bowels still work because there's just many ways in which humans can do it. Remember, I said we humans are spectacular because we've adapted to every nook and cranny of this planet, right?
Yeah,
And we're just so capable of so much flexibility. We can survive anything. If we were to be plunged into a rainforest where fruits are abundant, we would probably thrive in those environments as well. We would get by. Whereas, and you could plunge us into an environment where there's only animal source foods or only ocean or marine source foods, and we'll still thrive. We've got the ability to thrive everywhere. But the most important thing is that we eliminate and we get rid of these agrochemicals that are leaching into our food supply. That, to me, is the biggest problem. Rather than we see a lot of diet wars going on. Plant based versus animal based. I very rarely get drawn into that because for me, it's more about the quality of the food being consumed
yeah,
rather than the actual. The name that your diet's got. To me, that doesn't matter so much. I think it is highly important to prioritize quality protein, and I do believe quality protein is best sourced from animal based foods or marine based foods. And I think it's important to prioritize quality fats, which again, I think animal source foods can contain and also plant based foods can contain as well. And quality carbohydrates. It has to come down to the quality of the macronutrients rather than the actual distribution of the macronutrient quantity. That's my perspective on it.
Yeah, yeah. And about the inflammatory disease like Crohn's and colitis, do you treat them with the diets, or is there any kind of treatment that can be used with diet modifications?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if someone comes to see me with ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, I will speak to them about the impact of ultra processed foods or foods in particular on the gastrointestinal microbiome. I'll explain to them that the agrochemicals that they're consuming in their food and water supply. I will talk to them about these nuanced things. But in addition to that, I will also speak to them about their sleep quality, their blue light exposure. Do they have a relationship to nature? Do they expose themselves to sun to get some vitamin D? I'll speak to them about the spiritual pillars of health, the emotional pillars of health. I'll speak to them about their interpersonal relationships. Are they in a stressful environment? I tackle it from all fronts. And nutrition is the biggest lever. Okay, it is by far the biggest lever you can pull. So I speak to them about nutrition. Often we will get people onto a bit of an elimination diet where we allow their colon to rest, because a lot of the inflammation is obviously within the large bowel, or the entrance into the large bowel, the small intestine, in the context of Crohn's. And we put them on a bit of an elimination diet where we're resting their gut. It's like if you've got a broken or you've torn cartilage, you need to rest your knee. It's the same with the gut. If you've torn the gut, so to speak, you need to kind of rest it. And one of the ways you can rest the gut is to deliver a diet which is very high in nutrients, which is digested higher up in the gut. Things like very simple starches, white rice, sweet potato. These are all good things that can be absorbed higher up in the gut without putting too much strain on the large bowel. But also, most importantly, quality meat, I think, is just so. It's so easy for the gut to break that down through enzymatic pathways in the mid part of the gut, rather than it entering the large intestine. So we give the large intestine a bit of a rest, and then slowly we reintroduce foods as they heal. And we've seen some great success stories with inflammatory bowel disease and diet. Excellent stories. Some people can go into remission and do very well, but there are also stories of people that can't put their their disease into remission just using diet, which goes to highlight that this is a very multifaceted disease. There's many pillars to all of this, and we don't quite comprehend what all of them are. But I think one has to understand that disease is really a multi-layered thing, and we shouldn't try and simplify too much. We just pull each lever very simply. Get the sleep in order, get the diet in order, and get their exercise and relationship to nature in order.
Yeah, yeah. It all comes finally it all comes to our lifestyle, a lifestyle that is more congruent, more similar to what the lifestyle we had in the past, and more close to nature, more close to raw foods, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we were evolved in the cauldron of ancient Earth, right? That we're built for difficulty. We're built for a difficulty that pushes us physically, pushes us mentally, pushes us spiritually and emotionally. Like we're built for all of that. It's just I don't think we're built for this world of comfort that we've built ourselves. I don't think we're necessarily built for the agrochemicals that we're ingesting in our food and water supply. That's what I'm saying. I think we. This is why exercise is so beneficial for the body, because you're pushing your body to its to the fullest. And as I said earlier, that is really important in terms of sorry, Henrik, that's my daughter. It,
No
it, it's
problem.
it's really important to really to push the body to its fullest. The problem is that we're being pushed through stresses that are not natural to us, and we must weed those stresses out.
Yeah.
That's what I'm very, very passionate about.
Yeah, yeah. One last question, Pran. I have a friend, Dr. Dario, and he's also a gastroenterologist. And he said that some
Yeah,
of his patients, when they
yeah,
become carnivorous,
yeah,
they have diarrhea and improve with the addition of a small amounts of rice or butyrate. Butyrate.
yeah.
Do you have any opinion about that? Do you think that this have to do with the what we were talking about?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you go on a carnivore diet, you can overdo the lean protein, right? And
Mm,
what happens there is you overwhelm the small bowel's digestive capacity, so you end up with amino acids or protein within the large intestine. Your bacteria, the gram negatives that you don't necessarily want overgrowing, putrefy that. Okay, that is broken down by a process called putrefaction, no longer fermentation. Putrefaction releases a lot of gases. It draws in liquid, and this is why a lot of people that if they're eating too much lean protein can end up with diarrhea. It's the same reason why people on a lot of protein shakes end up with significant gut distress, because over time they
yeah.
start selecting for this putrefactive Clostridial and E. coli and enterotoxigenic gram negatives, which I don't think are beneficial. This is why I suspect when you give them white rice, because it's such a simple starch that it's broken down further up in the gut, and there's also some really soluble fibers within sweet potato and white rice that the good bacteria in your gut like. Right, and so
Okay.
you're giving it a bit of balance, you're giving it a bit of form, and that's what we're built for. We're fundamentally we're built for that flexibility. We should and always should have that flexibility for long term health. You'll find that a lot of people that start off with these hyper carnivorous diets, they can do it for a while, and because of the high satiety and high nutrient delivery, they'll often lose weight. They'll have great positive changes, but most of them will revert to some element of omnivorous diet, because that is fundamentally what we are at our core, at our essence. I
Yeah.
know of very few people that can pull off a carnivorous diet long term, and if they are doing it long term, there's obviously some sort of notoriety to be gained from it, or some sort of attention that they can monetize, or something like that. Most of us, we will always revert to omnivory, because that's what we're built for. I mean, personally, just from my perspective, most of my diet comes from animal sourced foods, because I know the high nutrient value in it. But
Yeah.
I enjoy plant-based foods too, and I enjoy fruits, and I enjoy those sort of things. And if I can find healthy grain, which is very rare to do, hey, I'll enjoy a little bit of healthy grain too, because that's what we human beings are.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I gotta be respectful with your time. I see you have your daughter there, and I just want to ask, what are your health and longevity strategies that you use in your daily life? So you said that you have omnivorous diets, but you prioritize uh, animal foods. You said I see you get in contact with nature. You are in the sunshine, in the sun, and things like that. Do you practice some kind of exercise? What kind of exercise do you use in your daily life?
Yeah, look, I wake up every day. I usually have a black coffee, which is I use a mushroom coffee, things like lion's mane and a few other mushrooms in there. I think mushrooms are an underestimated source of nutrition. And I think they've also got some really great neurocognitive benefits as well. So I tend to start my day with that, then usually follow it with eggs. And then I spend time, maybe an hour or two, in deep reflection in my own mind, connecting to some of the more spiritual aspects and metaphysical aspects of existence, right? And I contemplate life. I write poetry. I philosophize about life. And I think that to me is the most important part of my day. Then I follow that with some violence in the weight rooms. Usually push my body to the best of my
Yeah.
ability for a 44-year-old bloke, and I really enjoy that aspect of my living. Lunch is usually, again, mainly protein and fat, because I like to keep my sugars steady during the day, just allows for better energy. And nighttime, usually I consume hunted venison meat, which I've got friends that deliver a lot of this meat to me. And I think hunted game meat is by far the healthiest source of protein. And that's what we tend to consume. And I tend to do sweet potatoes as well at nighttime, and carbohydrates. Sorry that heavy. No. This is a
Ah, no
podcast,
problem.
and yeah. So that's how I kind of my day goes, and I try and get a good night's sleep, mate. I think that sleep is a really
Yeah.
important pillar to health, and usually have a little bit of magnesium glycinate, which helps me with sleep, and try and avoid avoid refined sugar at all times. I do not consume refined sugar. I just think it is the absolute worst thing you can do. And another health tip is avoid junk information. Stop scrolling through
Yeah.
your phone and stop watching doom articles on the news. I think that does nothing for your mental and spiritual health. Do something useful. Read a book.
Yeah, yeah. Great talk, man. Great talk, my friend. Thank you very much for your time. I see you have your daughter there, and I don't want to take your time with
No,
her.
it's all right. It's okay.
I,
It's a pleasure.
I appreciate your time. I appreciate your talking, and I appreciate your work on the social media. Who knows if I go to Australia, to Sydney, we can meet in person.
I would love to meet in person. I'd love to take you on my farm. I'd love to invite some of my friends who are really brilliant hunters. I'm no good at it. Okay, I'm just learning, but I'd love to take you there, and we can hunt some wild goat and some wild pig and things like that, and maybe some deer if we can find them, and really kind of introduce you to life as an Australian. Who knows? You might settle here.
Great. If you ever come to Brazil, please let me know so we can meet.
I will, mate. I love the Brazilians. I think you guys are terrible soccer players, but I think you're good people.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you, mate. All good. Talk soon.
Bye bye.
Bye, my friend.